You can see there, effectively, I mean, this is a month old, unfortunately, but the P ratio of those markets and a box and whisker chart. So if it's within the gray area, that's sort of within the norm. And if it's in the tails or the whiskers, that's pretty extreme. You can see most markets are neutral. Japan and UK look cheap. Australia neutral. US stands out as being the most expensive market, not only compared to the others, but compared to itself. So the question then is that a bubble? Is that crazy? Or is that just sort of, valuations getting ahead of themselves and otherwise bull trend? I think the first thing is that the US really is the main economy giving earnings right now. So it kind of makes sense in a way that people are front running and buying it. If you believe analysts' expectations on earnings over the next 2 or 3 years, valuations look okay. And our macro model on the right-hand side, this is US equities, shows that having around 10% earnings growth for the next 2 or 3 years, according to our top-down macro model, looks okay. So for us, it's expensive for sure, but it's not like a screaming sell because the market's really complacent. Now we're talking about bubbles. If you think about the CAPE ratio, or the cyclically adjusted PE ratio of the NASDAQ, right now it's at 40 times, which is expensive. It was 100 during the dot-com crisis, so less than half of that. So I don't think bubble conditions are necessarily there, but we're starting to see some sort of froth under the surface. But you don't have to go back to the dot-com crisis. Just think back to 2021. You had the P ratio of the S&P was over 30. Right now, as of today, it's more like 23. And you're seeing profitable tech do well. Whereas 2021, it was all the unprofitable tech story. You had, not to pick on anyone, but Cathie Wood's on the news every day. Arc Innovation was at peak. You had 1,000 IPOs, mainly from SPACs, which were like investment vehicles to get access to unprofitable tech. You had a whole bunch of things going on that was screaming excess and hope. Whereas today, the market caps are doing well, the Mag 7, who actually are delivering on earnings. If you think about the Mag 7, they have double the free cash flow earnings growth over the past, say, 6 years than the other 493. Their margins are 19%. The rest of the S&P is at 9%. So these companies are delivering cash. So the Mag 7 are doing well, and the Russell 2000, for example, is doing really poorly because they don't have any money. Or Arc Innovation is down 60% from the peak. So we're not, and there's only 150 IPOs last year versus 1,000 2 years ago. So the excess is not necessarily there. So for us, it's like, well, are the earnings actually beating expectations? Everyone was saying last year that all the expected earnings this year are just crazy. Now they've beaten expectations again, actually beaten expectations by more than the 5 or 10 year average, and the earnings beats about 6.9%. And the Mag 7 on the right-hand side, you can see beat by both earnings and revenue, other than Tesla. So I'm not saying that they're cheap and you should go buy them. In fact, I do think they're stretched and primed for a pullback, given how fast and how rapidly they've run. But for us, we think calling them a bubble right now is probably a bit premature. They're companies that are doing very, very well. And just one final example, like Microsoft, if you think about all the CapEx spent by the US corporates last year in software, 4% was just renewing their 365 subscription. And most of their beats were on cloud computing. Nothing there really is saying AI is driving the current earnings. I think the expectation of future earnings on AI is still questionable. And there might be cases of cannibalization where maybe Google does really well and Microsoft less well in the AI space. But for now, we're not seeing bubble conditions. It's just a stretched market primed for a pullback, but an otherwise continued bull market.